The tiny fleet appears. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with murmurs and whispers. Delegates from dozens of alien species sat in their high-backed chairs, each representing a powerful empire. The massive hall gleamed with polished metal and crystal lights, a symbol of the galaxy's finest achievements. Yet today, the Council's focus was not on any of the great empires. Instead, their attention was on the newcomers, humans. The Earth delegation stood at the center of the chamber, facing the judgmental stares of their alien counterparts. Captain Marcus Steele, the commander of the human fleet, stood tall despite the sneers and chuckles aimed at him. His dark uniform bore the insignia of Earth's Space Command, but it looked unimpressive compared to the elaborate robes and armor of the alien leaders. A towering Krillian ambassador, his exoskeleton glinting in the light, leaned forward and addressed the humans. "Captain Steele," he said in a mocking tone, "is this fleet of yours truly what Earth has to offer? I was expecting something more formidable." The council erupted in laughter. Even the more diplomatic species couldn't hide their smirks. Displayed on the massive holographic screen behind Marcus was an image of Earth's fleet, a dozen ships, all much smaller than the grand dreadnoughts and carriers of the other galactic powers. They looked almost like toys compared to the massive battleships lining the council's docks. Marcus remained calm. He stepped forward and looked directly at the Krillian ambassador. "It's not the size of the fleet that matters," he said, his voice steady and clear, "but how you use it." More laughter followed. A reptilian delegate from the Zarnok Empire hissed with amusement. "Use it? Against what? A space fly?" The joke drew even louder laughs, and some council members banged their desks in mock applause. Beside Marcus, Lieutenant Ava Reynolds clenched her fists. She whispered to him, "They're not even trying to hide their insults, sir. How can they be this arrogant?" Marcus glanced at her and gave a small smile. "Let them laugh," he said. "It's easier that way." The council leader, a stately figure with shimmering silver skin, raised his hand to silence the room. "Captain Steele," he said, his voice cold but polite, "Earth has requested to join the Interstellar Defense Coalition. However, your fleet is unconventional. It is our duty to ensure that all member species contribute meaningfully to the coalition's strength." Another delegate, a bird-like creature with sharp feathers, leaned in. "Meaningfully? Look at those ships. They're tiny. What can they possibly do?" Marcus's smile didn't waver. "Perhaps, instead of judging our fleet by its appearance, you should see what it's capable of." The room grew quieter, though the air still crackled with skepticism. The council leader raised an eyebrow. "Very well, Captain Steele. The human fleet will be assigned to patrol the outer sectors, the peaceful area, far from any significant threats." His tone made it clear this was more of an insult than an assignment. Ava couldn't hold back any longer. "With all due respect," she said, her voice firm, "Earth has faced challenges you can't imagine. We've learned to adapt, to innovate. Our fleet is small, yes, but it's not weak." The Krillian ambassador sneered. "Then prove it. Show us what these adaptations are worth." Marcus stepped in before Ava could reply. "We'll gladly prove it," he said. "Just let us do our job." The council leader nodded, though it was clear he didn't take the humans seriously. "Dismissed. Prepare your fleet for patrol. We'll review your performance soon enough." As Marcus and Ava left the chamber, the murmurs started again, louder this time. Words like primitive, hopeless, and laughable floated through the air. Ava's frustration was visible in every step she took. "They don't even care to understand us," she said once they were out of earshot. "Why did we even bother joining this coalition?" Marcus stopped and turned to her. "Because it's not about what they think," he said. "It's about what we do. Let them underestimate us. That's our advantage." The two officers made their way to the docking bay, where Earth's fleet was stationed. The sight of the ships filled Ava with a mix of pride and worry. The vessels were sleek and compact, designed for speed and precision, rather than brute strength. Their matte black hulls reflected no light, giving them a ghostly, almost invisible appearance in space. As they boarded the flagship, Eclipse, Ava turned to Marcus. "Do you really think we can impress them? These ships are incredible, but they're expecting massive firepower. Not this." Marcus smiled again, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Let me tell you something, Lieutenant. The best punch is the one they never see coming." Marcus smiled again, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Let me tell you something, Lieutenant. The best punch is the one they never see coming." The Eclipse hummed to life as the fleet prepared for departure. From the Council's observation decks, alien delegates watched with mocking curiosity as the tiny fleet moved into formation and vanished into the stars. None of them noticed the faint glimmer of advanced cloaking systems activating as the human ships disappeared. Back on the flagship, Marcus looked out the viewport, his expression unreadable. "Let them laugh," he murmured to himself. "They won't be laughing for long." The stage was set. The galaxy's most underestimated fleet was about to face its first test, and humanity was ready to show the universe what it could do. Humanity's technology revealed. The darkness of the Sirion abyss was absolute. Stars flickered faintly in the distance, their light dwarfed by the vast, menacing ships that prowled the sector. The human fleet, however, was nowhere to be seen. Hidden beneath layers of advanced cloaking technology, Earth's vessels hovered in silence, unseen and undetected. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Captain Marcus Steele observed the enemy formation with an air of quiet intensity. The tactical display showed the enemy fleet splitting into smaller groups, their movements deliberate and calculated. It was only a matter of time before they swept close enough to detect the humans, if they weren't careful. "Captain," Lieutenant Ava Reynolds said, breaking the silence, "the recon drones have picked up something new." Her fingers danced across her console, pulling up a live feed on the main display. The screen shifted to show a smaller enemy vessel breaking away from the main fleet. Its movements were erratic, as though it were scanning wildly for something. What caught everyone's attention, however, was the unmistakable glow of its hull, a faint, shifting red, similar to the rooms seen on the larger ships. Marcus studied the image for a moment. "What's it doing?" he asked. Ava ran a quick analysis. "It's emitting a subspace pulse every 30 seconds. Could be a scanning method, but it's different. The energy signature doesn't match anything in the Council's database." Before Marcus could reply, the pulse reached the fleet. Though their cloaking held firm, the impact rippled faintly through the ship, a vibration just strong enough to send a chill through the crew. "Captain," Ava said, her voice tight, "they might not see us yet, but they're closing in. That pulse is narrowing their search radius." Marcus's lips pressed into a thin line. "They're hunting us." He turned to the helm. "Prepare evasive maneuvers, but stay cloaked. Let's keep them guessing." The fleet began to move, their silent engines pushing them through the void. The enemy ship, however, changed course, its scanners locking onto the trail left by the faintest energy signature from the Eclipse. "They're following us," Ava exclaimed. "Captain, we can't stay hidden forever." Marcus nodded. "Good. Let them come closer." The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. They had heard the captain's calm confidence before, but this felt risky. Marcus, however, remained unmoved, his focus razor-sharp. "Ensign Carter," Marcus said, addressing the tactical officer. "How close are they?" Carter checked his console. "Within 2,000 kilometers and closing fast. Another subspace pulse will hit us in 30 seconds. Marcus's eyes gleamed with something between determination and mischief. "Drop cloak on my mark. Prep the EMP payload." The room froze. Ava spun in her chair, disbelief written all over her face. "Sir, dropping the cloak will give away our position. They'll call reinforcements." Marcus gave her a reassuring glance. "And that's exactly what I want. Trust me, Lieutenant." The seconds ticked by. The enemy ship loomed closer, its glowing hull like a red predator stalking invisible prey. The tension on the bridge was palpable as Marcus waited, his hand hovering over the command console. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Eclipse's cloak dropped, and for the first time, the enemy ship locked onto the human vessel. The Predator lunged, its weapons powering up in an instant. EMP now, Marcus barked. A pulse of blue energy erupted from the Eclipse, racing toward the enemy ship. The effect was immediate. The glowing runes on its hull flickered, then died. Its engines sputtered, and its weapons powered down as the ship drifted, completely disabled. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Marcus raised a hand, silencing them. Hold your positions. This is just the beginning. On the tactical display, other enemy ships began converging on their location. The small victory had drawn attention, exactly as Marcus had planned. "Captain," Ava said, her voice tinged with worry, "we've got 6 more ships heading our way. If they surround us." "They won't," Marcus interrupted. "Prepare the fleet for synchronized strikes. We're going to show them what these tiny ships can do." The Eclipse and its sister ships moved into formation, their engines humming with precision. As the enemy reinforcements approached, the human vessels launched their first wave of attacks. Streams of energy beams and kinetic projectiles streaked through the void, striking the enemy ships with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy returned fire, their massive weapons lighting up the abyss. But the human ships were too fast, their advanced maneuvering systems allowing them to weave through the chaos like shadows. Each time an enemy ship tried to lock on, it found itself outmaneuvered and outgunned. One by one, the enemy vessels were disabled, their hulks drifting helplessly in the void. The Eclipse led the charge, its advanced targeting systems finding weaknesses in the enemy's formidable defenses. On the Galactic Council's observation deck, a group of alien delegates watched the live feed in stunned silence. The humans, whom they had mocked just hours ago, were dismantling a fleet that could have crushed any of their own. "Captain," Ava said, her voice filled with awe, "the enemy fleet is retreating." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Let them run. And make sure they carry a message with them." The humans had not only survived, they had won decisively, and the galaxy was beginning to understand what that meant. As the human fleet regrouped, Marcus sat back in his chair, his expression calm once more. "Let them think we're small," he murmured. "The bigger they are, the harder they fall." But deep down, he knew this was just the first test. The galaxy had taken notice, and the true battle was yet to come. The Galactic Council's doubts. In the luminous halls of the Galactic Council's central chamber, the air was thick with tension. Delegates from dozens of species huddled in clusters, their whispered conversations filled with disbelief. The live feed of the battle in the Sirion Abyss had played across the vast screens just moments ago, and the Council was struggling to process what they had witnessed. The tiny human fleet, a term now spoken with far less mockery, had single-handedly dismantled a squadron of advanced enemy ships. It was a feat no Council fleet had ever managed against such overwhelming odds. The rooms on the enemy ships, previously thought invulnerable, had crumbled under human precision and tactics. At the center of the room, the Krillian ambassador slammed a clawed hand onto his podium, his exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. "How is this possible? They are primitives, barely a century into space travel. Are we to believe that these humans possess technology that rivals our own?" A reptilian delegate from the Zarnok Empire flicked his tail in irritation. It wasn't just their technology, he hissed. Their tactics were surgical. They knew exactly where to strike. The shimmering silver-skinned council leader raised a hand, silencing the room. "Ambassadors," he said, his voice cold and deliberate, "it seems we have underestimated humanity. But we must not jump to conclusions. This was a small skirmish. Their victory could be a fluke." A voice from the shadows interrupted. A fluke. It was the Valorian ambassador, a slender figure with violet skin and eyes that seemed to pierce the soul. She stepped forward, her tone measured but sharp. They faced ships armed with technology we barely understand and emerged unscathed. That is no accident. The room fell silent as her words sank in. The Valorians were known for their neutrality, rarely speaking up in council debates. For them to take humanity's side was unprecedented. The Krillian ambassador sneered. "And what do you propose, Ambassador Lyra?" "That we bow to these humans, allow them to dictate terms in the coalition." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "I propose that we take them seriously, because if we don't, someone else will." Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, the mood was cautious but celebratory. The fleet had regrouped at a secure point in the abyss, and the crew was finally allowing themselves to breathe after the tense encounter. Lieutenant Ava Reynolds leaned back in her chair, watching the replay of their battle on her console. "We made it look easy," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. Marcus Steele, standing at the viewport with his hands clasped behind his back, didn't share her enthusiasm. "It wasn't easy," he said quietly. "And it's not over." Ava frowned. "You think they'll come back?" Marcus turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "They will. And next time, they'll be ready for us." Before Ava could respond, the ship's comm system chimed. "Captain," Ensign Carter's voice came through. "Incoming message from the Galactic Council. It's flagged as urgent." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Patch it through." The holographic display lit up with the image of the council leader, his silver features cold and unreadable. "Captain Steele," he began, "your fleet's performance in the Sirion Abyss has drawn considerable attention." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "I'm glad to hear the council is paying attention." "Sir." The leader's expression remained stern. "Attention is not always a good thing, Captain. There are concerns about your fleet's capabilities, how a species as young as yours could achieve such advancements." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Concerns? Or fear?" The room on the other side of the transmission grew noticeably quieter. The council leader's eyes narrowed. "You tread a dangerous line, Captain. Transparency is the cornerstone of this coalition. If humanity has hidden technologies, the council will require full disclosure." Marcus's smile faded, replaced by a steely resolve. "With all due respect, sir, humanity's survival has never depended on the council's approval. We've faced extinction more times than I can count, on Earth and beyond. Our fleet isn't built to impress you. It's built to protect us." The council leader's lips pressed into a thin line. "Consider this a warning, Captain. The council does not take kindly to secrets." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Ava glanced at Marcus. "That went well." Marcus chuckled, though there was little humor in it. "Better than I expected." Back at the council, the debate raged on. The Krillian ambassador pushed for sanctions against Earth, claiming their secrecy posed a threat to galactic stability. Others called for an immediate inspection of human technology. But Lyra, the Valorian ambassador, had a different perspective. "Perhaps," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, "the humans are not the threat. Perhaps they are the solution." The room erupted in chaos once more, but Lyra's words lingered. For all their advancements, the council had grown complacent. The humans, with their unorthodox methods and relentless drive, were a reminder of what the galaxy had once been: hungry, resourceful, and willing to fight for survival. As the council debated, far away in the Sirion Abyss, the human fleet prepared for the inevitable. They knew the enemy wasn't defeated, merely delayed, and when the time came, they would show the galaxy once again that humanity was far from tiny or insignificant. Marcus stood at the viewport, watching the stars. "Let them doubt us," he murmured. "Doubt is the first step to fear." The hidden agenda. The Sirion Abyss had grown unnervingly quiet. The once expansive void, alive with the hum of unseen threats, now seemed to hold its breath. The human fleet, cloaked and concealed, floated in formation as if the silence itself were part of the enemy's plan. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Captain Marcus Steele studied the tactical display. It showed no immediate threats, but he wasn't convinced. If the enemy had retreated, it wasn't out of fear. It was to regroup. They weren't finished. Not yet. "Anything new on scans?" Marcus asked, his voice breaking the tension. Lieutenant Ava Reynolds, leaning over her console, shook her head. "No new activities, sir. The remaining enemy ships seem to have vanished." "They didn't vanish," Marcus said firmly. "They're watching. Waiting. Just like we are." Ava hesitated. "If they're regrouping, why haven't they called for reinforcements? A fleet like theirs shouldn't be operating alone." Marcus frowned. It was a question he'd been turning over in his mind. The enemy's tactics were precise, their movements calculated, but something about their behavior didn't add up. Why send a fleet this advanced into a relatively unimportant sector? What were they really after? Before he could respond, the comms officer spoke up. "Captain, we've intercepted a transmission. It's encrypted, but it's coming from deep within the sector, closer to the abyss's core." Ava turned to Marcus. "Could be the enemy. Or something else." Marcus nodded. "Let's find out. Helm, set a course for the transmission source. Cloaks remain active. I want us to stay invisible." The fleet moved silently through the abyss, their engines running at minimal output to avoid detection. As they neared the transmission's origin, the air on the bridge grew heavier. The source of the signal wasn't what anyone expected. "Captain," Ava said, her voice trembling slightly, "we're picking up a structure. It's massive." The holographic display lit up, showing the image of a colossal station floating in the darkness. It wasn't like any design Marcus had ever seen. The station's exterior was a patchwork of alien materials, its surface covered in the same glowing red runes as the enemy ships. But what truly stood out was the energy signature. It was off the charts. "That's no ordinary station," Marcus said. "What's it powering?" Ava's hands flew across her console. "It's hard to say. There's a central core emitting a steady pulse, similar to the ones the enemy ships were using to scan for us. But it's not just scanning. It's amplifying something." "Amplifying what?" Marcus pressed. "I don't know, sir. But whatever it is, it's big." Inside the station, an enemy fleet commander stood in a darkened chamber, illuminated only by the red glow of the runes. Her figure was tall and imposing, her armor etched with the same pulsating symbols. She stared at a holographic display showing the last known location of the human fleet. "These humans," she muttered, her voice low and laced with disdain. "They are more resourceful than expected." A smaller figure approached, bowing low. "The Council's dogs may be clever, but they are still fragile. Their victories are insignificant." The commander turned, her eyes blazing with determination. "Insignificant. They neutralized our forward fleet, and they did so without revealing the full extent of their capabilities. Do you not see? They are holding back." The subordinate hesitated. "Then why not crush them now? We have the numbers. The weapon is nearly ready." "No," the commander interrupted sharply. "The humans are no longer the target. They are the test." The subordinate froze, confusion clear on their face. "Test for what?" The commander stepped toward the central console, placing a hand on its surface. The rooms on the station flared brighter, responding to her touch. "For the coalition itself. We will draw the council here, show them the limits of their strength, and when the time comes, we will shatter their fragile unity." The subordinate bowed again. "As you command, Overseer." Back on the Eclipse, Marcus's instincts were screaming at him. The station wasn't just a base, it was a weapon. And the enemy wasn't retreating. They were laying a trap. "Lieutenant," Marcus said, his voice sharper now, "any sign of enemy ships near the station?" Ava shook her head. "None. It's almost too quiet." Marcus turned to the comms officer. "Get me a secure channel to the fleet. I want all ships ready to engage. If this is a trap, we won't be the ones caught in it." As the Eclipse and its sister ships approached the station, a new signal burst through the void. It was a message broadcast across all frequencies. To the humans of Earth, a deep, commanding voice intoned, "You have proven yourselves resourceful, but your defiance ends here." The tactical display flared to life as dozens of enemy ships decloaked around the station, their weapons charging. "Captain," Ava shouted. "They were waiting for us." Marcus's expression hardened. "Good. That makes things simple. All ships, engage. Target their engines and weapons systems. Let's show them what humanity can do." The human fleet surged into action, their sleek ships weaving through the enemy formation. Despite being outnumbered, the humans fought with surgical precision, exploiting every weakness in the enemy's defenses. The station loomed in the background, its core glowing brighter with every passing moment. As the battle raged, Marcus's eyes remained fixed on the station. Whatever the enemy was planning, it was tied to that structure, and he wasn't about to let them finish. "Lieutenant," Marcus said, his voice calm but urgent, "prepare the fleet's prototype. It's time we turned their trap against them." Ava hesitated for only a moment before nodding. The humans had one last card to play, and Marcus was ready to gamble everything on it. The final stand. The void erupted into chaos as the human fleet clashed with the enemy armada. Streams of energy bolts and kinetic projectiles illuminated the darkness, painting a brutal tapestry of destruction. The enemy ships, larger and more heavily armed, bore down on the human fleet with relentless fury. Yet, Earth's ships moved like phantoms, their compact frames slipping through gaps in the enemy formation. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Captain Marcus Steele stood tall, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. Every movement of the battle was mapped out in real time, showing the overwhelming numbers arrayed against them. But Marcus wasn't focused on the enemy's numbers. He was watching for patterns. "Lieutenant Reynolds," Marcus called out, his voice calm despite the chaos, "status on the station's core." Ava's hands flew across her console, pulling up the latest data. "The energy buildup is accelerating, sir. If I'm reading this right, they're minutes away from activation." Marcus nodded grimly. "That station is the key. If we don't neutralize it, this battle's already lost." Inside the enemy station, the Overseer stood before the glowing central core. The runes on her armor pulsed in rhythm with the energy emanating from the device, casting her in an ominous red glow. "The humans are resilient," she said aloud, her voice echoing in the chamber. "But even their ingenuity has limits." Her subordinate approached cautiously. "The station's weapon is almost ready, Overseer. Once fired, the human fleet will be annihilated." The Overseer smirked, "And the Galactic Council will see their coalition shattered. The humans' defiance will serve as the spark that ignites the galaxy." She turned to a nearby console, activating a holographic display. It showed the human fleet in battle, outnumbered but far from outmatched. Her smirk faltered slightly. "They fight like cornered predators," she muttered. "Impressive, but futile." Back on the Eclipse, Marcus's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the enemy's tactics. They were trying to box in the human fleet, forcing them closer to the station's blast radius. It was a coordinated effort, but it left one critical flaw. "They're overextending," Marcus said, more to himself than anyone else. He turned to the comms officer. "Signal the fleet. Execute Delta 3 formation. Concentrate fire on their forward line and punch through." Ava glanced at him. "You're pushing us toward the station, sir. That's what they want." "Exactly," Marcus replied, a glint of determination in his eyes. "They think we're playing their game. Let's make them think they're winning." The human fleet shifted seamlessly into formation, their ships aligning to form a spearhead. They surged forward, tearing through the enemy's forward line with brutal efficiency. The enemy ships scrambled to close the gaps, but the humans were already inside their formation. "Captain," Ava said, her voice tight with urgency, We're in range of the station. Its weapon is powering up. Energy levels are spiking. Marcus's expression didn't waver. Prepare the fleet's prototype. Target the station's core. Ava froze for a moment, her fingers hovering over the controls. The prototype, a newly developed gravitational destabilizer, had never been tested in combat. It was designed to generate a controlled singularity, powerful enough to neutralize even the most fortified structures. But it was also dangerously unpredictable. "Sir," Ava began, "if we fire the destabilizer this close, we cooled." "I know the risks," Marcus interrupted. "But if that station fires, we're all dead anyway." "Do it." Ava nodded, her hesitation giving way to resolve. Targeting core. Firing sequence initiated. Inside the enemy station, alarms blared as the human fleet's sudden offensive threw their forces into disarray. The overseer's confident smirk vanished as her subordinates frantically reported the humans' movements. "They're targeting the core," one of them shouted. The overseer's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. No weapon can breach our defenses." But as she spoke, the station trembled violently. On the holographic display, the Eclipse unleashed the gravitational destabilizer. A shimmering field of energy lanced toward the station, its impact triggering a cascading reaction within the core. "What is that?" the overseer demanded, her voice rising. The runes on the core flared brighter, pulsing erratically as the destabilizer's effect took hold. "Core destabilization detected," a technician yelled. "It's collapsing in on itself." On the Eclipse, the crew braced themselves as the destabilizer's power rippled through the void. The enemy station began to implode, its massive structure folding inward as the gravitational field tore it apart. "Captain, the station's collapsing," Ava shouted. "But the energy buildup, it's still going." Marcus's jaw tightened. "They're going to try to fire the weapon before it fully collapses. We have to finish this." He turned to the helm. "Full power to engines. Take us in closer. Target their command structure." The Eclipse surged forward, its sleek frame weaving through the chaos of the battle. Enemy ships scrambled to intercept, but the rest of the human fleet held the line, buying precious seconds for their flagship. As the Eclipse closed the distance, Marcus gave the final order. "Fire everything we've got. Take it down." The ship unleashed a devastating barrage, its weapons tearing through the station's weakened hull. The core's glow reached a blinding intensity before finally collapsing in on itself, taking the station with it. The resulting shockwave rippled across the sector, disabling enemy ships and scattering debris into the void. When the dust settled, the human fleet emerged victorious. The enemy armada was in ruins, and the station's weapon, a threat to the entire galaxy, was no more. On the bridge of the Eclipse, the crew erupted into cheers, but Marcus remained focused. He looked out at the wreckage, his expression somber. "This isn't the end," he said quietly. "They'll come back. And next time, they'll be stronger." Ava turned to him, her voice filled with admiration. "And so will we, sir." Marcus nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Yes, Lieutenant. So will we." The final stand had proven humanity's strength, but the war was far from over. For now, though, they had shown the galaxy what Earth was capable of, and that was only the beginning. Humanity's true power. The wreckage of the enemy fleet floated silently in the void. Fires burned out in the oxygen-deprived hulks, leaving behind twisted metal and shattered fragments of what was once a mighty armada. The battlefield was a stark reminder of the price of underestimating humanity. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Captain Marcus Steele stood tall, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. The human fleet had regrouped, their sleek ships moving with practiced precision. They had emerged victorious, but Marcus's mind was already on what came next. "Damage report," Marcus said, his voice calm. Lieutenant Ava Reynolds scanned her console. "Minimal, sir. A few hull breaches and some drain systems, but all ships remain operational." Marcus nodded. "And the enemy?" Ava's eyes flickered with something close to awe. Their fleet is destroyed, sir. Completely. The station. There's nothing left but debris. The bridge was silent as the crew absorbed the magnitude of their victory. They had faced overwhelming odds and prevailed, not through brute strength, but through ingenuity, strategy, and resilience. It was a triumph that no one, not even the Galactic Council, could ignore. Far away, in the grand halls of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. The Krillian ambassador's voice echoed through the chamber. This is an outrage. The humans, these primitives, possess weapons that could destabilize the entire galaxy. Ambassador Lyra of the Valorians stood, her violet eyes blazing. And yet, they saved us all. Perhaps instead of condemning them, we should thank them. The chamber erupted into arguments. Some delegates demanded sanctions against Earth, while others called for their elevation within the coalition. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was divided, and humanity was at the center of it. The council leader raised his hand, silencing the room. His silver features were tight with tension. We cannot ignore what has happened here today. The humans have proven themselves capable of defeating a threat that none of us could have faced alone. But their methods, he hesitated, raise questions. Lyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room. Their methods saved us. While we sat here debating, they acted. Isn't that the kind of ally we need? The council leader's gaze hardened. Or the kind we should fear. Back aboard the Eclipse, Marcus was preparing for the next move. The fleet had received an encrypted message from Earth, a direct communication from the Unified Earth Command. The holographic display on the bridge shimmered to life, revealing Admiral Elena Carter. Her presence was commanding, her voice steady. Captain Steele, she began. Congratulations on your victory. Your actions have not gone unnoticed. Marcus inclined his head. Thank you, Admiral. But I doubt the Council sees it that way. Admiral Carter allowed herself a faint smile. The Council's opinions are irrelevant. What matters is that Earth now holds a position of strength, one we fought hard to achieve. The enemy underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again. Marcus frowned. And neither will the Council. The Admiral's expression grew serious. Precisely. We've sent you additional orders. Your fleet will remain in the Syrian abyss for now. Intelligence suggests the enemy may have deeper plans, and we need you to uncover them. Marcus nodded. Understood, Admiral. We'll be ready. As the transmission ended, Ava turned to Marcus. Sir, do you think the Council will ever truly accept us? Marcus looked out at the stars, his expression unreadable. They don't have to accept us, Lieutenant. They just have to respect us. In the weeks that followed, word of the human fleet's victory spread across the galaxy. The story of how Earth's tiny fleet had outmaneuvered and destroyed an enemy armada became the stuff of legend. Alien species once indifferent to humanity now regarded them with a mix of awe and caution. But not all the attention was welcome. In the shadows of the galaxy, unseen forces stirred. The Overseer's superiors, hidden within their own fortress worlds, watched the battle's outcome with cold calculation. The loss of the station was a setback, but it had served its purpose, to test the humans. They are stronger than we anticipated, one voice said, deep and resonant. Stronger, yes, another replied. But they are still vulnerable. Their coalition allies distrust them, and their technology is still young. They can be broken. The Overseer's figure appeared as a shimmering hologram. Her tone was measured but defiant. The humans are a threat, but they are also an opportunity. Their methods could be studied, adapted. A pause followed, then the first voice spoke again. Prepare the second phase. This was only the beginning. Back on the Eclipse, Marcus sat in his quarters, reviewing the latest reports. The fleet was repairing and rearming, but he knew the enemy wasn't finished. The quiet moments after a battle were often the most dangerous. There was a knock at the door. Enter, Marcus called. Eva stepped inside, holding a tablet. "Sir, you should see this." She handed him the device, which displayed a message from Earth Command. It was a new blueprint, a ship design unlike anything Marcus had seen before. Sleek, powerful, and heavily armed, it was a testament to Earth's rapid advancements. "They're calling it the Leviathan," Eva said, her voice tinged with excitement. "A dreadnought-class warship, Earth's answer to the galaxy." Marcus studied the design, his mind already racing with possibilities. "They'll see it as a provocation," he said quietly. Ava nodded, "but it might be the only thing that keeps them in line." Marcus set the tablet down and leaned back in his chair. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was no longer just another voice in the council. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the stars outside the viewport twinkled, Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of hope. The enemy wasn't defeated, but humanity was stronger than ever, and ready for whatever came next. "Let them come," he murmured to himself. "We'll be waiting."